The Owl Motel and Watch Dogs. This place is home to some real-world mafia lore of one of the baddest gangsters of the era. But how much of it is actually true? Let's find out. The Owl Motel is home to Aiden's first hideout of the game. It's one of the very first places you arrive, and it comes with this hotspot right here. This quiet little motel had its own short moment of heated excitement in 1967, when an informant crucial to the conviction of Sam Teets Battaglia was kept under wraps in room 205. For the time of Battaglia's trial, the informant, Joseph Joyce, had to be moved repeatedly to escape being murdered by Battaglia's men. The Owl Motel was Joyce's last relocation before he took the stand, putting away Battaglia for good. So this hotspot makes a few big claims. One, there's a guy named Joseph Joyce, who was a pivotal part in putting away a very high-profile mafia gangster. Two, in 1967, Joseph Joyce stayed here at the Owl Motel right before putting away this mafia gangster for good. And three, this infamous gangster was named Sam Teets Battaglia. Who the hell is Sam Teets Battaglia? And how did he get a name like Teets? So it turns out Battaglia was a real guy and completely badass. And at 16 years old, he joined Johnny Torrio and Al Capone in the Chicago outfit at the very start of their gang war with the North Side Gang. The North Side Gang at the time was run by Dean O'Banion. And by the late 1930s, Battaglia has made his way up to becoming a high-ranking member of the Chicago outfit, including being a vicious loan shark. He was so vicious, in fact, that debtors who were behind on their payments would be brought back to a small room in the back of a restaurant called Casa Madrid in Melrose Park, Illinois. And back there, they would either be severely beaten or killed, flat out killed. Supposedly, Battaglia's nickname Teets came from one of these encounters where he was handling a debtor and another mobster was questioning it and questioning his methods. And he literally goes,
"Shut up or I'll bust you into teats."
Meaning the teeth, not teats. So I don't know about you, but at this time, I'm already really intrigued by this guy, so we're gonna dive deeper. And in my deep dives, I found that he came up in some FBI documents that had really cool stories about him. I'm gonna put this up on the screen, and feel free to pause if you want, because it's a really cool story, but I'm gonna sum it up for those who don't wanna pause. This informant in the FBI documents was having money problems and business problems, so he needed $15K immediately. And at the time, a good source of money was to go to a mafia member. So he decided to borrow money from this guy named Milwaukee Phil, who he had borrowed money from in the past. The informant knew in his heart this was a terrible idea, but he was really in a bind, so he didn't know what else to do. But this time, almost immediately after giving him the money, Milwaukee Phil demanded a part of his business, which the informant didn't want to give. So the informant gets really stressed out and is now contemplating doing crimes to get the $15K back. He was debating going out on a score, which in mob terms and criminal terminology means some kind of crime or theft or robbery or some like high stakes heist. The story continues for a little bit, and then we get some really juicy bits about Sam Teets Battaglia and how his mind works. I'm gonna read this verbatim because it is one of the coolest things I think I've ever found in an FBI document. The informant mentioned that Sam Teets Battaglia is now the real boss of the outfit. He described him as the tightest guy he's ever come across. Informant said Battaglia is loaded, and yet about 3 weeks ago, he chased a small-time gambler halfway through Melrose Park and beat the guy up just because he owed him $320. He said Battaglia watches all the gambling games in the area very close and nobody gets away with anything. He said that he's also a great guy to utilize free labor on his farm. There are always small-time hoods who are looking for favors and trying to get in good with Battaglia. He said that these punks often get sucked into performing sizable jobs for Battaglia, thinking that they're going to gain his favor. But the informant said none of these guys are ever recognized by Battaglia, who regards them as dopes. The informant said that Battaglia also chooses to avoid any publicity. Since Giancana fled to Mexico and wants out of the organization, Battaglia knows any heat will be focused on him. And Battaglia goes out of his way to keep his name from being used. So we can already see that he's positioning himself as a guy who is really high up in the ranks, someone who avoids the public eye, uses a nickname, uses aliases, but is violently obsessed with getting his money back and making sure all the scores are settled across the board. He's consistently riding this fine line of staying out of the spotlight, but also ruling his sector with an iron fist, a bloody iron fist. So back to the hotspot, what did he actually get put away for? Extortion. In 1967, he got an extortion conviction. He was convicted of obstructing interstate commerce by extorting money from a construction company, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. His conviction date was in spring of 1967, which completely tracks with the date that's listed in the hotspot. So, after hearing all of that, the reasons he was put away, who is Sam Teets Battaglia, what kind of guy he is, we've still heard nothing about Joseph Joyce. And Joseph Joyce is a really big part of the hotspot fact in Watch Dogs. So who's he? So one thing we know is Mafia members hunting down people who are going to put them on trial or trying to put them away was very common. To be tracked down and killed was a big thing. So the fact that an informant might have had to be moved from place to place before a trial is very, very likely. Some measures were even taken for safety so that informants didn't have to go to court at all. That's how intense and heavy these hits were. But also, through all the FBI pages I read, all the research that I did, no informant names actually ever came up, which also tracks with keeping their safety and identity protected. Which also means the name Joseph Joyce was completely made up, even if he was a real guy at the time. None of the FBI documents that I read either said that there was one particular person responsible for putting Teets away. We can kind of assume that through all the crimes he was doing through the years, there was a buildup. The government was probably definitely after him. So it wasn't really one person responsible for putting him away. So we're seeing that the idea of Joseph Joyce is getting further away the deeper we look into Battaglia himself. So we have only one spot to turn to if the Owl Motel was the actual place that he stayed before the trial. And that is the real Owl Motel. A lot of people say that the Owl Motel is based on the Heart of Chicago Motel in Illinois, but it's actually based on the Seashore Motel in Santa Monica, which is listed in the game notes. Luckily, I live really close, so I decided to go in person and check it out. If we compare photos, you'll see really clearly that the Owl Motel looks way more like the Seashore Motel rather than the Heart of Chicago Motel. But did any Mafia incidents happen at either one? Short answer from my long research, no, nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. So how much of the hotspot was actually true? How much was made up and why? Mob-related informants were definitely being hit at this time, so the idea of bouncing from place to place is most likely true. And this is Aiden's first main hideout until later in the game, when it burns. But what they're really setting up here is this hotspot shows you're in the same position as Joseph Joyce, alongside all the in-game Mafia lore with Lucky Quinn. Joseph Joyce was a pivotal informant. Aiden Pierce becomes a very pivotal part of taking down Lucky Quinn, the Mafia head in this game. So we have Joseph Joyce going up against Sam Battaglia, and we also have Aiden Pierce going up against Lucky Quinn. Two guys in the same spot, in the same motel, kind of in the same room. They say he's in room 205, but technically there's no numbers on the doors of the game, so we can't really say that for sure. But they want you to believe that you are filling the shoes of Joseph Joyce. There is a shadow of a pivotal informant that Aiden is now taking place of. And the whole game is vigilante-based. Aiden and you yourself become a pivotal part of reshaping this hyper-surveilled world. So you're not just freeing people from Lucky Quinn, you're freeing people from the government as a whole, as much as you can. We can even zoom out from there and see that that's the same role DedSec is playing with the world government. DedSec reveals itself to be a group of high-tech, very skilled vigilantes who are going up against the world government in many different ways to fight for the people's freedom, fight for their right to not be watched all the time. Which then expands perfectly into the world of other vigilantes and how the game series expands from there, placing you in different areas to continue fighting this fight against the world government. I seriously can't get enough of this game. It is so beautifully well designed through and through. The story is super rich, and this little tidbit where you start off at the Owl Motel really kicks everything off energy-wise and sets the tone for who you can be and how you can change the world just by doing what's right and being willing to kill a couple people in the process. All right, I hope you enjoyed my deep dive of Sam Battaglia and the Owl Motel. Until next time, this is RPGia signing off.